I trusted my best friend at work with everything, until she framed me for stealing just because our manager started liking me more. She planted a customer's credit card in my apron and nearly got me fired. I almost lost my job, my reputation and my sanity. When her lies fell apart, she came begging for forgiveness. My best friend at work staged a theft to ruin my life, just to stop our manager from noticing me more than her. I know how that sounds. Dramatic, maybe even unbelievable. But I lived it, and for a long time I didn't tell anyone. I buried it under fake smiles during shifts, behind polite laughter at pre-shift meetings, and under 100 I'm fines when I wasn't. But the truth never really stays buried, does it? Eventually it claws its way back up, demanding to be heard. I worked at a busy, well-known restaurant in my city. The kind of place where Friday nights feel like war zones and the regulars expect you to remember how they like their martinis. I was still relatively new in town, and outside of work I didn't know many people. I kept mostly to myself, quietly trying to learn the ropes and not mess up too badly. I wasn't the loudest or the funniest, just reliable, someone who got the job done and went home. I'd been there for about 6 months when she started, Brittany. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, gorgeous, with this effortless, sun-kissed glow and a confidence that turned heads without trying. Her laugh was loud, full, contagious. She walked into the room like it belonged to her. Customers loved her, managers adored her, and coworkers either wanted to be her or be around her. She was magnetic, and somehow she picked me. We clicked immediately. Not in a fake surface-level way, but in that rare, deep way that makes you feel like someone truly sees you. We bonded over late shifts and shared exhaustion, but also over dreams. She wanted to get into marketing or maybe event planning. I was hoping to save up for a graphic design program. We started swapping shifts to work together more often. Inside jokes, shared playlists, coordinated outfits. She'd walk into the break room, toss me a Red Bull and say, "Don't die out there, partner." I'd slip extra ranch into her to-go bag. It was easy, effortless, real. We weren't just coworkers. We were close. Late-night wine and takeout after shifts, trading shoes before dinner rushes, calling each other family. I trusted her in ways I didn't trust anyone else. She knew my insecurities, my struggles with rent, my dreams of leaving food service for something bigger. She was there the night I cried over my breakup, the first to text me when I landed extra hours, the one who always saved me the last mozzarella stick. To the outside world, we were inseparable. At work, people joked that we were like twins. Managers scheduled us together because we worked in sync. Guests remembered us as a duo. And honestly, I loved that. I'd never had a friend like her before. Someone who got me without having to explain myself. She always drew more attention, and I never resented her for it. In fact, I admired her. I was content being in the background, steady and quiet, while she lit up the room. Her shine didn't dim mine. It made me feel lucky just to be close to her. At least, that's what I used to believe. That's what makes everything that happened so much harder to accept. Because when someone you love turns on you, it doesn't just hurt. It breaks something in you. Not just trust, but your sense of judgment. Your belief in your own instincts. It makes you question everything. Every laugh you shared. Every late-night talk. Every secret spilled. And in my case, it nearly cost me everything. Things started to shift when she got close to one of our managers. Let's call him Jake. He was a few years older than us. Flirty, but not in a creepy way. At least not at first. It wasn't long before Brittany and Jake had some kind of arrangement. They weren't officially dating, but she'd confide in me about how they were seeing each other off the clock. I never judged her for that. It was her life. And honestly, Jake wasn't a bad guy. Until he was. At first, Brittany's connection with Jake seemed harmless. She still showed up to shifts on time, still joked with me on breaks, still acted like we were a team. But gradually, little things began to feel off. She would disappear into the office more often, coming back with this smug grin, like she knew something I didn't. Jake started laughing a bit louder at her jokes, lingering a little longer when she spoke. It was subtle at first, but unmistakable. Then came the scheduling changes. Brittany was suddenly getting prime shifts, Fridays and Saturdays, brunches with high turnover, sections near the bar where the big tippers sat. Meanwhile, I was being loaded up with late closings, back patio doubles and last-minute call-ins. When I brought it up to Jake, he brushed me off with, "We're just rotating." But the rotation never seemed to swing back my way. Our dynamic changed too. Brittany, who used to share memes with me mid-shift and send "you okay" texts during chaotic rushes, became distant, colder. She'd smile with her mouth but not her eyes. She stopped coming over after work, started saying she was too tired or had plans, and when we did talk it was all surface. No more venting. No more late-night honesty. Just curated perfection and low-key condescension. What hurt most was that she started using our closeness like a weapon. Subtle digs in front of coworkers, jokes about how I was always so sensitive, or not cut out for the long haul in food service. Things she knew would sting because I had once trusted her enough to share those insecurities. At first I told myself I was imagining it, that maybe I was being jealous or petty. But the pattern became too clear, too consistent. She was carving out her position beside Jake, and if that meant pushing me out of the way, even if it meant watching me unravel, she was willing to do it. And still, I wanted to believe we were okay, that maybe this was a phase, a misunderstanding. But deep down, something in me had already started to break. One night, during what should have been a routine Saturday dinner rush, one of our regulars flagged down Jake, furious. His credit card had gone missing. He swore he had handed it to someone. He couldn't remember who, but now it was nowhere to be found. The whole mood of the restaurant shifted. We were all pulled into the back, one by one, for questioning. Managers paced. The air felt heavier than usual, like even the walls were bracing for fallout. People whispered in corners, unsure if they were about to be blamed for something they didn't do. Jake gathered everyone for a brief meeting by the lockers. His tone was serious, almost too serious for someone who usually joked through everything. He said management was taking the matter seriously, that if the card didn't turn up soon, they'd need to escalate things. My heart raced, but I assumed this had nothing to do with me. I hadn't even waited on that table. I had been assigned to register the entire night. Then a few hours later, Brittany came forward. She held the card in her hand, frowning dramatically. "I found it," she said, her voice just loud enough to get everyone's attention. "It was in the pocket of this apron." She held up my spare apron, the one I usually kept in my locker. I couldn't breathe. There was this strange moment of silence, like the air had been sucked out of the room. My coworkers glanced at me, a few raising their eyebrows. I felt like I had been dunked underwater. The world muffled and distorted. "Is there something you want to admit?" Jake asked, pulling me aside a few minutes later. His voice wasn't angry, just measured. But his eyes told a different story. Suspicion. Disappointment. Like he'd already decided. I looked at him, completely at a loss. "I didn't touch that table. I was on register all night. Check the schedule. Check the sales logs. We'll look into it," he said, flat. "The cameras should give us more clarity." Relief washed over me for about 2 seconds, until I heard that the one camera pointed toward the locker hallway had been conveniently out of order that night. "Maintenance issue," they said. "No footage, no way to prove I hadn't gone near the lockers." The next morning, I woke up to a text from the assistant manager. I wasn't scheduled for the rest of the week. No explanation, no apology, just a cold, flat message. "Please take a few days off while we sort this out." My chest tightened. It wasn't official, but I knew exactly what it meant. I was being quietly suspended, treated like I was guilty before anyone even proved a thing. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Every missed shift felt like another stone tied to my chest, dragging me down deeper. It wasn't just the fear of losing money, it was the humiliation of knowing that in their eyes I was already halfway out the door. That was when it started to really sink in. The sharp sting of betrayal wasn't immediate. It was slow, crawling in from the edges. A part of me still didn't want to believe Brittany could do something like that. But I remembered watching her come out of the locker hallway earlier, holding something in her hand, face carefully neutral. I remembered her brushing past me later, casually commenting, "Hope you didn't misplace anything." I hadn't thought anything of it then. I should have. The next day, I barely slept. My stomach twisted in knots, my mind running in circles. I didn't understand why she'd do this. What could she possibly gain? She was already getting the best shifts, the most praise, the extra attention from Jake. Why does she try to take me out of the equation altogether? It felt personal. And then, a strange twist of fate gave me the smallest thread of hope. A newer coworker, quiet, sweet, not yet jaded by the chaos of our job, had been goofing around near the hallway during that shift, snapping selfies for her Instagram story. Totally innocent, totally random. But in one of the photos, plain as day, you could see Brittany in the background, at my locker, her hand inside the pocket of my apron. The item she was holding wasn't visible, but the timestamp matched perfectly with the moment the card went missing. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours, my hands trembling slightly. Part of me wanted to believe there could be another explanation. Maybe she was just adjusting something. Maybe it was some terrible misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew. I knew exactly what I was looking at. That was the moment everything clicked. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. I was being set up. And the worst part? No one would have believed me if I hadn't found that photo. Jake certainly didn't act like someone on my side. Brittany still had influence, still had her charm, and she knew how to wield it. It was like I had been erased, my words stripped of weight, while hers still floated easily through the air, believable and untouchable. I imagined myself walking into the manager's office, slamming the photo down, demanding justice. But the reality was, I was terrified. Terrified that somehow even this wouldn't be enough. Terrified of being labeled the troublemaker, the liar. Terrified of confirming whatever doubts Jake and the others already harbored about me. I felt too small, too outnumbered, too broken. So I stayed quiet. I tucked the photo away, like a secret weapon I wasn't brave enough yet to use. But I didn't forget. Not for a second. In the days that followed, something in me started to change. I began to dread going into work. The place that had once been hectic but familiar now felt hostile and cold. I could feel the shift in how people looked at me. Some with pity, others with hesitation, like they weren't sure whether to trust me or avoid me. A few coworkers I used chat with at the soda station suddenly had nothing to say. Some even pulled away mid-conversation when Jake or Brittany walked by. I started second-guessing everything I did. I triple-checked every table number, every payment, every handoff. I was terrified of another coincidence being used against me. My confidence, once quiet but steady, was now riddled with holes. I became quieter, more withdrawn. I'd go home after shifts and just sit in silence, staring at my takeout container, replaying every moment of the day, every interaction, every sleep became difficult. My body was exhausted, but my mind never stopped racing. What if management really believed I did it? What if Brittany had planted something else I didn't even know about? What if this whole thing escalated and I was fired before I could defend myself? It affected everything. I stopped drawing. I stopped reaching out to my family. Even grocery shopping felt overwhelming. Every time I walked past someone who looked vaguely familiar, I wondered if they were a customer who had heard the rumors. It didn't just bruise my reputation. It cracked my sense of self. There were days I couldn't even make it out of bed. I would lie there for hours staring at the ceiling, feeling like my body weighed 1,000 pounds. Some mornings the thought of putting on my uniform, of stepping back into that place where I wasn't wanted, made me physically ill. I started calling out sick more often, even when I wasn't truly sick, at least not in a way anyone could see. The anxiety wasn't just background noise anymore. It became my constant companion, a sharp and gnawing presence that I couldn't shake. Walking through the restaurant doors felt like stepping into a courtroom, where the verdict had already been decided. I moved through each shift like a shadow, invisible yet scrutinized. Even outside of work, the paranoia clung to me. Grocery stores, gas stations, coffee shops, everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me. I caught myself looking over my shoulder, afraid that someone somewhere recognized me and believed the worst. I stopped wearing my name tag outside of work, terrified it would expose me to judgment beyond those restaurant walls. My world shrank smaller and smaller. Friends grew distant after too many unanswered messages. Family stopped asking when I would visit. My apartment, once a place of comfort, started to feel like a prison I was building around myself, brick by invisible brick. I didn't even recognize the person I was becoming. So, I waited. I gathered more. I checked the POS system. The records showed I was clocked into register and processing payments the entire time that table was seated. No way I could have left the floor to grab a card, let alone stash it. I printed that report and kept it. I also started documenting everything. Weird things Brittany said, how she always found missing items, how she never got blamed for anything. Then came the breaking point. It was during another slammed shift. The kind where tickets piled up faster than we could clear plates, and the whole restaurant buzzed with tension. A customer, red-faced and loudly furious, accused one of the servers of pocketing a large cash tip. Instantly, the already chaotic environment descended into pure disorder. Plates clattered, conversations hushed, and eyes darted nervously across the room. Jake stormed onto the floor, radiating anger. He barked orders for everyone to stop what they were doing and demanded statements. Staff huddled in corners, whispering, avoiding his gaze. HR representatives showed up within an hour, clipboards in hand, faces grim. It wasn't just a missing credit card this time, it was cold, hard cash. Accusations of theft hit differently. They stuck harder, stained faster. After a frantic search, Brittany once again became the heroine of the hour. She dramatically found the missing cash tucked behind the microwave in the kitchen. An absurd place, no one would ever logically hide money. And when HR pressed her for details, Brittany claimed she had seen my apron hanging suspiciously near the kitchen line earlier that day. The room spun. I could feel the blood drain from my face, the murmurs starting to ripple through the staff again. It was all too familiar. The way she framed it. The way Jake's gaze hardened slightly when he looked at me. The tightening in my chest. The same choking helplessness. But this time, I was ready. I didn't lash out. I didn't plead. I went home that night, sat at my tiny kitchen table, and carefully assembled everything I had gathered. The POS logs, the Instagram selfie with its timestamp, detailed timeline of my movements and transactions, cross-referenced with sales records. I sent HR a calm, methodical report. No accusations, no emotional language, just facts. Line after line of cold, clear facts. I ended the report with one line. I don't know who is behind this, but I know it isn't me. A week later, Brittany was suspended pending investigation. Jake, too. It didn't happen all at once. It started with small things. Quiet meetings behind closed doors, whispered conversations in the manager's office, shifts in the way people looked at Brittany. The atmosphere changed, subtly but unmistakably. People who used to flock to her side now gave her cautious glances. Jake stopped making loud jokes in the dining room. The golden veneer they had both so carefully polished started to crack. Then the real bombshell dropped. HR uncovered that Brittany had asked a kitchen runner to accidentally unplug the locker hallway camera the week before the credit card incident, under the flimsy excuse that she needed privacy to change clothes. It was a clear violation of company policy. There was no hiding from it, no charming her way out. I wasn't there when they called her into the office, but the aftermath spoke volumes. Brittany came out red-eyed, her mouth pressed into a tight line, her hands shaking slightly, as she clocked out early. Jake followed an hour later, pale and silent. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without feeling like I had to defend my existence. The air in the restaurant felt lighter, like a storm had passed even if the sky was still a little dark. And yet, even in her downfall, Brittany still tried to reach me. She left voicemails, rambling, tearful, full of half-apologies and excuses. She even came to my apartment once, knocking softly, whispering through the door that she didn't mean for any of this to happen. Her voice cracked through the door, desperate, small. She said she was scared. Scared because she saw Jake starting to praise my work ethic, starting to give me the prime shifts that used to be hers, scared that he admired me for things she could never fake: consistency, professionalism, quiet resilience. She admitted she panicked. That framing me had seemed in her twisted logic like a way to protect what she had. She begged me to talk to HR, to vouch for her character, to tell them it was all just a mistake. She promised she would make it right, that she would fix everything if I just gave her this one chance. But I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. Some bridges aren't just burned, they're vaporized. But I didn't open it. I sat there on the other side, frozen, listening to the girl who once called me her family, now begging for forgiveness she didn't deserve. I didn't owe her that, not after everything. Brittany ended up being terminated. Jake got demoted and transferred. I still work there, but nothing feels quite the same anymore. The restaurant feels different to me now, like an old sweatshirt that doesn't fit right anymore. Familiar, but not comfortable. I go through the motions. Clock in, tie my apron, take orders, smile when required. I do my job. And I do it well, maybe even better than before. But there's a layer between me and everyone else now. A protective shell I never needed before Brittany. I'm more guarded. A little colder, maybe. I smile for customers because it's part of the uniform. I laugh with the new hires because it's expected. But behind every laugh there's a hesitation, a silent calculation of how much to reveal, how much to hold back. I don't vent during pre-shift meetings anymore. I don't share memes during breaks. I don't offer rides home or linger after clocking out. Every connection now feels like walking a tightrope. I keep people at arm's length, even the ones who never gave me a reason to doubt them. Because trust, real, wholehearted trust, feels too dangerous, too fragile, too costly. And the saddest part is I miss who I used to be. I miss being the girl who believed that loyalty meant something, that friendships built over late-night fries and inside jokes could survive anything. But experience has a way of stripping away those illusions, leaving you sharper, yes, but also lonelier. I still show up, I still work, I still live. But I haven't let anyone get that close again. Sometimes I wonder if Brittany ever really liked me at all, or if I was just another convenience. A temporary shield while she built her own little empire. I wonder if she lies awake at night regretting it. But I don't dwell. Not anymore. Some people say forgiveness is freeing. And maybe they're right. But for now, silence is the only peace I know. Have any of you ever had a friend betray you so deeply it changed who you are? If so, how did you ever learn to trust?